Well, I understand that many in this congregation do not understand the term Canon Sunday. Those of you who are giggling may have heard this before. Every church I've been in knows what this means. So now you will too. Canon Sunday is the Sunday following a big celebration, like the Sunday after Christmas, the Sunday after Easter. Means you can fire a cannon through the church and you won't hit a person. And that's usually when associates get to preach. So here I am. And it also means that when you get me, you get a short sermon because that's my rhythm. Today's message is from Isaiah. After I plan for such a sermon, I vow never to do it again. That is, preach from Isaiah. And that is for three very distinct reasons. First of all, Isaiah is not a minor prophet. Isaiah is one of the major prophets, the three biggies. And his prophecies take up one of the longest books in the Bible. So if you ever have insomnia, Isaiah. The trouble is it won't help you much because it's really interesting. And that's my problem. The history of Israel, this is number 2. The history of Israel during Isaiah's life is very complex. And it covers the reign of 4 very diverse kings. And so the politics of that time go back and forth, and it's fascinating, but complicated. And number 3, it's more than difficult to condense the writings of Isaiah into a single sermon, even if you pick out just a small passage, as I have done. I get so caught up in Isaiah's life and writing that I end up surrounded by books and heading off into rabbit trails and have to pull myself back onto the point of the message, which I'm not too sure always happens. And that's why today's message would be 3 hours long, except that my daughter and her family are arriving for a visit around noon, so you will be saved. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please join me in prayer. Gracious and loving God, what a season we have had. A joyful season. We have celebrated the birth of your Son. We have enjoyed great sermons, fun music. And it is time to move on. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable and bring glory and honor to you, O Lord. You are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Now, central to the life of Isaiah, the event which prepared him for his life as a prophet was the vision of God he received early in his life and work, which he related in the 6th chapter of Isaiah. And I'm going to read it to you because it's so magnificent. Isaiah says, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphs," those are heavenly beings, "each with 6 wings. 2 wings covered their faces. With 2 others they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory." At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. "Woe to me," I cried, "I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." And then one of the seraphs flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. And with it he touched my mouth and said, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for." And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me." With a vision like that in his background, in his actually childhood almost, we have an explanation as to why the strength of Isaiah's proclamation was as it is in the text today. You see, Israel had been defeated by the Assyrian army, and then they were sent off into captivity for long, grim years at the hands of their captors. They had just been released from their captivity and were facing the arduous trek back to their homeland around Jerusalem. But they were tired. They were physically and spiritually exhausted. The greatest obstacle to their homeward march was their bone-deep fatigue. And so Isaiah counters this resistance with his vision and understanding of God. Isaiah understands that the face of the defeating realities of the day is at times difficult, and putting one foot in front of the other makes trusting the future to a God we cannot see almost impossible. The people of Isaiah's time were as apprehensive and even fearful as we might be today. The upheavals in our world today can get inside of us. Fears and uncertainties can be amplified, augmented, until each small difficulty begins to sap our energy. We are drained. Our brains become scrambled. Our bodies sag, and there is no end to our aches. Our hearts become heavy with weariness. Tears and anger may be close at hand as we wonder, where is God? Yesterday afternoon, this would be Saturday afternoon, I lost my sermon for today. I looked high and low for it. It was nowhere to be found. I was texting with Pat Rubokava and told her of my predicament. I asked her what sermon she would want to hear if she was going to be in church today. And here is her reply. I've been in the hospital for 4 weeks now. The last 2 weeks I have been only on IV feeding. I can only swallow a drop or two of water now and then. My mouth is so dry. But Monday, tomorrow, they are to address the kidney stone and hopefully get rid of it. A good sermon topic would be about appreciating the smallest things in life, such as allowing a small bead of water to trickle down one's parched throat, or a cup of hot tea. She's English, you know. Or having your hair shampooed. Thank you, Pat. Indeed. Our text for today are Isaiah's strong words of encouragement from God. Rather than giving in to the weariness, rather than scolding the people for whatever weakness, God gives us encouragement through Isaiah. God will not grow weary or tired. He is the everlasting God. He is the creator of the ends of the earth. We may grow weary, but God gives us strength when we think we are at the end of our rope. And when we hope, when we trust in the Lord, He will renew our strength so that we may take another tiny step. No, that is not what God does, not our God. Our God is not a minimalist. Our God is expansive. He gives in limitless proportion, whose giving knows no bounds, unrestrained, bountiful, so that we can soar. This is not a little task. This is not a small gift. So that we may soar on wings like eagles. And when we will run, we will not grow weary. I have to tell you, I stumble over that phrase. It's been a while since I've even tried to run. Some of you may be in the same boat. But he goes on, we will walk and not be faint. I would like you to think for a moment of a time when you had come to the end of your rope, or thought you had, and found there was more, that God had opened the floodgates before us. And gave us the ability to move on in new and powerful ways. The next time you are weary, when your spirits are lagging and you feel overwhelmed by life, take a deep breath. Go for a walk. See if appreciating the small things in life gives God the opportunity to pour into you all that you need, and then some, and then a lot, and then even more. Sometimes it's only in hindsight. But we receive from this boundless giver of all gifts much more than we need. And sometimes We don't even see it. But it's there. For me, today,